So for the sake of the recording, good evening everybody, welcome to Aro Ling Cardiff. This evening's teaching is given to us by Ngakpa ö-Dzin and on the subject of Tsog'khorlo.
Good evening everyone. I thought in this teaching of Tsog'khorlo, it's very much aimed at perhaps people who haven't experienced Tsog'khorlo before or haven't had much of an experience of Tsog'khorlo before. So it takes a beginner's point of view. The practice of Tsog is a practice of a feast offering ceremony, and as far as I know exists in all schools and traditions of Himalayan Buddhism. I may be wrong in that, but as far as I know, that is the case. And it could happen at any time, but there are particular times especially on the Tibetan calendar, or we should say the Himalayan calendar, where there are special days. And one of those days happens to be today, the 10th day of the Tibetan month, where we celebrate Guru Rinpoche at Tsog'khorlo. On the 25th of the Tibetan month, there is a celebration of Yeshe Tsog'khorlo. There are also celebrations at Losar as well, and other times as well. It could be there'll be celebrations at the end of retreat because something has been achieved there. I thought I'd start somewhere else entirely and ask you to imagine that you've been invited to a formal dinner party. This could be something in the style of dinner parties that you'd find in a Jane Austen novel.
If you were the rich.
Yes, or maybe a step or two down from there, but you can imagine what it might be like if you were invited to such an event, and perhaps Mr. Darcy or Mr. Bingley are also present. You've got pictures of this sort of thing. You've either read the books or you've seen the television or film adaptation. You've got some idea of what that looks like. So invitations are sent out to a select group of people with an indication of what the event is going to be like. And in that culture, people tend to have some idea already about what the event might consist of and how to when to arrive, what to bring, all those sort of things. So if you look at those kinds of events, you know that there's going to be wonderful food and wonderful drink. It may be that the hosts are providing everything, or it may be that the hosts provide the main course, the guests provide a dessert, the guests will certainly bring wine, everybody brings something. This is just simply part of the etiquette of the occasion. Nobody's a freeloader in this situation expecting something or for nothing. Everybody brings something. They might even bring flowers to help with the sense of decoration, the sense of occasion. People will wear really smart clothing for this event. You don't just come in from the garden or from drilling a hole in the wall or whatever it is in your mucky clothes and wander off to an event like this. There will be a sense of preparation. So you'll have a shower, have a bath, whatever, and you put on some really special clothes for the occasion. It could be a suit, a dress, a uniform, but something with a sense of occasion something with a sense of smartness and crispness about it. When you arrive at the party and you step out of your carriage and ask the footman to look after the horses for you, you find that the venue has been decorated to whatever extent that the hosts have put out the best tablecloths, the best mats, there's silverware, there's sparkling glasses, and perhaps candles have been lit to give a certain atmosphere to the occasion. So you've got some idea of what that looks like. Everybody is at their best. Everybody is on their best behavior. If there's an etiquette to the occasion, everybody applies that etiquette to themselves and expects it of others as well. And so everybody is not only attempting to appear their best, but everybody is seeing everybody else being their best as well. So there's no sense of looking down on anyone. Everybody is at a level and everybody is at their best level. There's a sense of openness and friendliness about the atmosphere. Everybody knows what's happening and everybody is helping to make that happen in whatever way they find appropriate, in terms of their clothing, in terms of their conversation, in terms of how they are with people. So there's delicious food and drink on offer. So people take their seats for the various courses of food, and everyone will be partaking of what everyone has brought. So if people have brought desserts, everyone will partake of everyone's desserts. Everyone will partake of the wines that have been brought. So what is offered out is received by everyone present. Within the gathering, there is a sense of complete presence. People aren't distracted. We're not looking at our phones. We're actually with the company. This is important. And we have an idea of when to converse and when to listen, how to make people at their ease within the company. And that could include just being there, present, and listening to what they say and responding in a friendly, cultured manner to whatever's happening. The meal continues for however many courses. There may be, at the end of the meal, it might be that people adjourn to another room while they have a further round of drinks. It could move on to spirits, but the sense of atmosphere continues throughout that period of time, even if it is a little less formal. At the end of the evening, depending on the company and whether there are servants, but at the end of the evening, people will help clear up, so that the hosts are not left with it all to do after the event. Hopefully, the hosts are left with nothing to do, so that there's a sense of completeness and relaxation about the event. And people take their leave at the end of the evening and call for their carriages or whatever they do, catch the bus. With a sense of joy, with a sense of having accomplish something together, with a sense of the continuing friendship between all the people present, and certainly the thought that they might all want to do it again at some time in the future. So if we look at the idea of Tantra, Tantra is the transformation of our everyday experience. Tantra comes between how we are and what we do every day and the enlightened condition, and is the bridge between the two. So it's a transformation of who we are, and it's a transformation of what we do. So in terms of the practice of Tsog, the Tsog feast offering, it is an enactment of the enlightened state. This is what we're doing when we come together to practice Tsog. So there's a sense of formality, and there's a sense of dignity about the occasion. And so you can start to see the parallels that are coming in here. But in a sense, it raises it to a different level, because we're not simply enacting the formalities of a place and time. We're enacting the formalities of the enlightened state. Again, people bring contributions. Sometimes it's a matter of people contribute in financial terms, but often it's a case that people bring what they enjoy. People bring what they think other people will enjoy in terms of food and drink. So this makes a wonderful collection of offerings from everybody to everybody, and particularly to the presiding lamas, as well as the group of practitioners who are present. In terms of the food and drink, some things are stipulated a little more formally, and there will be 5 particular ingredients present in terms of the outer offering. So we have something cooked, something sweet, fruit, nuts, and grains. These, but not necessarily in that order, represent the 5 elements of earth, water, fire, air, and space. So we're looking at these elements being particularly brought into the food offering, and in terms of how an aspect of practice is the transformation of these 5 elements in terms of transforming the neurotic qualities that we may possess in terms of each of the elements into their realized, into their enlightened condition. So symbolically, you have these 5 ingredients. An easy way of remembering the 5 ingredients is consider a fruit and nut biscuit. But that may be losing something of the completeness of the intent. But basically, all the ingredients are in there. But around that, I mean, not everybody has to bring all of those things, but around that, you have all the offerings that people are giving. And it's an offering of thoughtfulness. It's an offering of intention. And then we also have the offerings. So that's the outer offering. So all the general things are brought. But we also have the inner offering, which is an offering of alcohol and meat. And you'll find these in either real or symbolized skull bowls. Now, the alcohol and meat represent emptiness and form. And so again, we're looking at transformation, and we're also looking at the sense that we are playing with emptiness and form in terms of how we approach non-duality. So how we approach the enlightened condition from that direction as well. Now, the alcohol and meat come from the time of the Mahasiddhas, and the Mahasiddhas were a certain, well, not entirely a set of practice, a way of practicing in terms of Indian Buddhism. So this is going back to a period before Buddhism came to Tibet and Bhutan. And if you can imagine this against the background of Brahminical restrictions and the what we call today Hinduism, the idea that some things are pure and some things are impure, some people are pure and other people are impure, and the impure is simply unworkable. We can't touch that, we can't go there, we can't teach these people. And the Mahasiddhas were revolutionary in their sense that everything is workable. We have meat and we have alcohol, which the Brahmins wouldn't touch. We put them in skull bowls. So we have the skulls from dead people, and the Brahmins wouldn't touch those either. And this is all to say that all of this is entirely workable. There is nothing and nobody who is beyond the pale. Nobody is beyond the possibility of realization. Just to take it a step further, the alcohol is not just alcohol. It represents blood and pus and urine and feces and semen and things that you probably wouldn't want to find in front of you when you're dining. Fortunately, these days we symbolize it with alcohol, which most people find that much more palatable. But if you imagine that's there as part of the Mahasiddhas' revolution in their approach to practice. The meat is the meat of horse and pig and elephant, human and snake. So again, you have 5 meats and 5 nectars here, all of which are considered disgusting, considered unpalatable. And again, the Mahasiddhas are saying, everything is possible, anything can be transformed, that we mustn't shy away from situations that we think are disgusting. If those situations need our help, everything can be transformed. The participants at Tsog'khorlo wear their most splendid attire. But again, this splendid attire is there in terms of practice. So it's the splendid attire of the 3 spheres of being. It's the splendid attire of Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Dharmakaya, of form, energy, and emptiness. So the splendid attire of the Nirmanakaya for the ordained could be their robes, their uniform, if you will. For non-ordained practitioner, it's whatever is smart. So again, we can take our cue from the idea of what you would wear to a formal dinner party, and you dress up and you wear your smart clothes for that. The splendid attire of the Sambhogakaya is the attire of the Mahasiddhas. So the Mahasiddhas lived in these in-between places, these twilight places like charnel grounds where the dead bodies were thrown, and would attire themselves in the skins of tigers and the skins of leopards, or they would attire themselves with bones strung together. And then the splendid attire of the Dharmakaya is nakedness, complete nakedness. So those are the possible ways of attiring yourself to participate in the Tsog'khorlo feast. We've gathered, Tsog'khorlo means gathering, gathering wheel or gathering circle, and this can be seen in terms of the people who have gathered, the offerings who have gathered, and in some teachings it's given as the gathering of good qualities that come as a result of practice as well. So we have this gathering, and we have the gathering of offerings that everyone has brought. Sometimes these are in serving bowls or serving dishes and will be transferred to plates for everyone at appropriate times, or brought round to people to partake of what they will, or sometimes, depending on the circumstances, they will already be plated up ahead of time and the plates distributed. Everyone is at their best, and this takes the idea of best a notch higher than the formal dinner party. Everyone is a Khandro or a Pawal, so everyone is representing their enlightened condition, and the presiding hosts are Padmasambhava and Yeshe Tsog'khorlo. So you are enacting enlightenment through your own being in that way, and in the pure vision with which you hold everybody else who is part of that. And so there's a sense of occasion, there's a sense of enacting enlightenment within this group. And this is actually quite palpable. You enter into pure vision within this group, and you see people as Khandros and Pawals. Whatever they might be doing, you see people as Khandros and Pawals within that group. When it comes to the ceremony, the actual Tsog ceremony itself, there may be an envisionment, which is another opportunity of arising in an enlightened form. You might arise as Padmasambhava or Yeshe Tsog'khorlo, you might arise as Dorje Purba. So through the power of the envisionment, there is a sense of how you are as a realized being. The ceremonies themselves differ wildly from one tradition to another. So although the heart of everything is very similar in terms of what happens, the actual practices may differ. Some Tsog'khorlo practice go on for a long time. Some will take all day. We attended one where there was a lunch break, and we went off to a cafe and came back later to conclude the ceremony. Some have a lot of teachings within the chanted ritual, and they will be going through a lot of aspects of teachings that are important to that tradition. Other traditions, such as the Aro tradition, have various forms, including some that are very essentialized indeed. So we have a tsog of seed syllables. The tsog itself is simply the enunciation of the seed syllables. There are commentaries to that, but those are actually seen as extra. Those are commentaries upon the seed syllables. So within the Aro, everything can be essentialized down to the seed syllables, or further to simply saying alalaho. But the more you essentialize everything, the more present you have to be while you're doing it. So having a ritual gives you more opportunities to return to that sense if you've drifted off. Return to that sense of being in the enlightened condition. Whereas if you essentialize it down to a moment, you need to be there. There's no drifting off or coming back. You need to be absolutely on the spot at that time. So this is re-entry into the enlightened condition. This is establishing or re-establishing the closeness of the Sangha. This is establishing or re-establishing closeness between lamas and Sangha. And it's an opportunity to repair everything that's broken in terms of the vows that we've taken and the vows that we have drifted away from. We re-arise in our enlightened condition, and we've remade all the vows that we've taken. We've repaired all the vows that we've taken in terms of Lama and Sangha. This is an important point, an aspect of the Tsog'khorlo. It's similar in many ways to sitting down to eat with anybody at any time. If you can manage to sit down and eat and have a friendly conversation with somebody while hating them, it's a trick that's beyond me. When we sit down to eat with people, we sit down in a spirit of friendliness. All negativity that's ever existed between people is dissolved at that time. And in terms of Tsog'khorlo, all negativities are dissolved completely. So there's a sense of openness and presence within the group. At some stage within the process, the inner offering is brought round, the alcohol and the meat. And in our tradition, these are brought round by kandros. So the kandros will tend to be attired in leopard skirts or possibly in bone ornaments. So there's a visionary aspect to that experience. You enter into the vision of that experience, and you receive the alcohol and the meat from the kandros.
They also dance.
They also dance. And then somewhat later in our practice, at least, there's the outer offering, which is the offering of everything that everyone has brought. So to me, it feels highly symbolic that whatever you brought is then sliced up in some fashion and distributed around the plates for everybody else. So whatever came from you goes to everybody else, and whatever came from everybody comes to you as a symbolic aspect of this practice. We are meeting with each other in that style. Again, these are brought round by the dancing kandros. And there's something in that dance as well, because that is an aspect of the visionary appearance. There's something in this that is saying we are the enlightened beings, and we're practicing that within this special environment, but it doesn't mean you're not at other times. So it's something that you can take away with you as well. But it's in this environment where pure vision is being practiced by everybody, it makes that more directly understandable, that we have this nature. So there's a sense of completeness, of openness and trust between people. Whatever barriers there might have been have gone. Within that sphere, there may be songs of realization. So after the food has been distributed and people are happily partaking of all that food, within our tradition, somebody who wanted to recite something, or somebody who spontaneously realized something, can ring a bell. Everybody stops exactly where they are. The person recites or enunciates a relatively short piece, because everyone's got food in their mouths or whatever, and then once that is over, people resume eating and conversing. So there may be these songs of realization, and at some stage a collection is taken up for the yidags, for the hungry ghosts, those who have an impaired sense of nourishment, shall we say, for whom nourishing food is not obvious, and the better it appears to us, the worse it appears to them. So we have this practice of scrambling up a portion of our food, and that goes into an offering bowl that's brought round by one of the powers in this case, ready to be taken outside and left somewhere that's less than salubrious, by the outside toilet or whatever. And this is a practice of vision. This is a practice of generosity, but it's a practice of understanding that we need to be generous to others in terms of how they view the world, not in terms of how we view the world. So we take the yidaks, the hungry ghosts, as an example, and rather than say, here, have this splendid cake, which then appears to them as fire or poison, we go, well, have this horrible thing, and they go, oh yeah, great. So other people have different views to us, and if they need help, we need to help in ways in which they can understand. I came across just the other day a group of homeless people who were being offered help, but it didn't actually meet with their needs. And that they've come up with this slogan, nothing about us without us. So the need to understand what a person actually needs before offering them something that's wildly generous but completely inappropriate. So that's the aspect of the Yiddag offering. That's an aspect of our generosity and how our generosity moves out into the world. And then towards the end of the practice, there may be the practice of Lama Naljo, which is unifying with the mind of the Lama, which is another opportunity to understand the enlightened condition through unifying with the mind of the Lama. And there'll be long life wish paths as well, which are our intention, our hope that our lamas will be around for a long time, but also our intention that we will be present with them in terms of being able to receive teachings, being able to receive transmissions from them. So long life is not just they're going to be around a long time, I'm going to be there too. I'm going to be present with all of that. Then the formalities come to an end, and it's time to clear up. And those of you who've been noticing that the Kandros have been bringing around the inner offering, and the Kandros have been bringing out bring around the outer offering, it's time for the powers now to do something. The powers are there, they leap to attention, and they immediately look after all the clearing up that is required. So again, we have some symbolism going on there, that the Kandros are bringing things out of emptiness and into form, and the powers are taking the form that remains and return it into emptiness, possibly via the dishwasher. So all of that is going on. Nothing remains of clutter and mess, and the scene is once more transformed. So, as with our dinner party, but a notch higher than that, there's a sense of having partaken of a thoroughly successful event. People have a sense of accomplishment, people have a sense of joy and openness that they retain with them, even as the group departs and possibly goes its separate ways. So the reason for looking at this in this way is that in the past we've not had a clear idea of how you are at Tsog, what you bring, what you wear. So having this parallel with the formal dinner party provides its own set of advice in terms of how you are with all of that. So you've got the formality in terms of how we dress. We dress to help create this enlightened atmosphere. So we dress appropriately to the three spheres of being. We dress appropriately to emptiness and energy and form, whichever aspect we choose to take on. What we bring, when we first came across Tsog, one of the pieces of advice was that the offering has to be something new, which is a decent piece of advice, but doesn't cover all the ground. If you think in terms of the formalities of the dinner party, you would expect the food offerings to be new. You don't want a cake with chunks missing, or biscuits with bite marks in them, or whatever. So that's all understandable. But I remember being on the hosting side, every fortnight or every month, however often it was, I'd buy a miniature of whiskey for the alcohol offering. Well, it has to be new, I said to myself. And I think it was Ngakpa Rinpoche who took it to the next level in terms of understanding. When you are the host for a dinner party, there are some things that it's all right to bring out of the cupboard, and spirits are one of those things. So I didn't have to go down the off license every week or however it was and buy another tiny miniature. If I bought a bottle of whiskey or a bottle of brandy, that was fine. That can come out of the cupboard, do its job, go back in the cupboard. So it's just another aspect of understanding in terms of how these things work that is recognized in terms of the parallels between our formal dinner party and our Tsog practice. How to be relaxed, but be present and be dignified. All of these things apply because all of these things represent the enlightened condition. So we're relaxed, but we're not sloppy. We're present, but we're not too wound up. And we're dignified in terms of how we deal with the situation. So the practice of Tsog is the practice of authenticating something that we do every day, eating and drinking. Now, we don't attend formal dinner parties every day, at least we don't. You might. But we all seem to eat every day, and we all seem to drink every day. And Tantra, in its infinite wisdom, is looking at aspects of our lives that are always there and connecting them with the enlightened state. So through the practice of Tsog and through our memory of the practice of Tsog, so when we partake of food and drink at other times, we remember our enlightened condition. And we may sing 7-line song, for example, before we partake of food and drink. And that is a memory, that is an aspect of considering our enlightened condition. So in conclusion, the practice of Tsog is the practice of enacting enlightenment. And through that, and through what we take away from that, it's helping to bring enlightenment into society, into our every action. So as Chogyam Trungpa would have it, through the recognition of the formalities of Jane Austen's England, we are helping to create an enlightened society.
I think Tsog'khorlo is always an enjoyable event as well. It's meant to be enjoyable.
Yes, it's absolutely. It's an enjoyment of the senses and sense fields, and it's an enjoyment of each other's company. I remember at the end of one Tsog particularly seeing the two Kandros who'd been bringing things round, sitting together, sharing a breadstick. Now this might seem like nonsense to you, but they were two Kandros sitting together, sharing a breadstick. It was like we had this visitation from another world. It was fabulous. So that's all there as a possibility.
I remember once being up at the Manjushri Centre, I think it's in Northumberland or something like that, and we didn't know there was going to be a Tsog'khorlo in the schedule, but it was decided there was. And there were a lot of children there, and they were running around excitedly saying, oh, food puja, food puja, food puja. So everybody enjoys Tsog'khorlo, I think.
Everybody, particularly the children.
Particularly the children. Yeah. Our boys certainly have happy memories of Tsog'khorlos. So thank you very much for that teaching.